You know, sometimes as an artist, you truly get the honor to paint something special for one of your friends out there. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you how to paint this beautiful Southern California inspired sunset painting done in oil. You get beautiful colors in your sky, your water, silhouetted palm trees that just stand out against the background, and a foreground that has so many pops of color, it truly grabs your attention. This painting is special because it's based off San Clemente, California. And this exact location right here, in fact, right there, is where my friend Tallyhoo Art proposed to his fiance. So you know what? Let's paint him and his fiance a quick gift. Now, as always, I did you a favor. Down in the video description below, I put all the colors, tools, and brushes you need to accomplish this painting right here. Let's dive in. When we take a look at our reference photos, you and I can easily see that we have darkened in silhouette palm trees and a foreground. So to make this easier for you and for me, let's go ahead and just drop in a template. Using a paintbrush and black gesso, we can drop in some basic palm tree shapes and a foreground element that'll help us later on in our tutorial. Now, if you're not used to putting in palm trees just yet, good news is for you that I've already done a video on this. I'm gonna put it in the top right corner, or you can go down in the video description. I would highly recommend watching that first, so that way you learn all the basic skills. When you've got your basic elements and assets in place with that black gesso and you've allowed it to dry, we can now put down our liquid white medium. We're only gonna apply this on the sky area and middle ground. Yeah, you do want to go over your palm trees. It'll help later on as well, but we do not want to put it down on our foreground element, aka the bushes and land that we'll be shaping later. Another prep step you should do if you're bad at straight horizon lines is use masking tape. Take some masking tape and figure out where you want your horizon line to be and lay down that tape. If you're too scared to touch the painting with your finger to push it down, I recommend using a firm 1-inch brush and go on the top side of the line so that way you can push down that tape so it grabs as much of the canvas as it can so no bleeding will go underneath the tape. All right, let's move on to our sky. If we look at our reference photo, we have the classic California sunset. Let's put a banding of yellow right in the middle, and then below that, let's put a nice burnt orange color, which is a mixture of cadmium yellow and just a little bit of Alizarin Crimson. Now with a clean and dry 2-inch brush, we can start blending some of our colors. Pull the yellow down into the orange to start that beautiful sunset gradient look. I would also recommend applying a little bit more pressure here to make our next step that's coming up a little bit easier. When we take a look at our reference location, we can see that there are some low-hanging clouds when we zoom in. But you know what? I don't feel like doing clouds for this particular painting. I want to do something different and more unique for my friend Tally. So I'm going to add some pockets of color using a flat or angled shader and just adding more yellow or more of that burnt orange. Now the trick here is to be actually loose with your brush strokes. If you can add a flattened U shape or a flattened W shape in the sky, and then when we come back and hit it with a clean and dry 1-inch or 2-inch brush and slightly blend these together, it's just going to look like a little bit of movement is happening within our sunset. All right, let's move on to adding some blue in our sky, and I recommend using phthalo blue here, but Prussian blue will do in a pinch. Take a little bit of your blue and start painting in the corners and then attach the corners with a nice band of blue. Get a nice even coat here. When you feel comfortable and ready, start to slowly pull down that blue towards your yellow. If you're a brand new painter or you don't feel comfortable just yet, make sure you leave a nice white gap between your blue and your yellow. This will help prevent any green occurring within your sky, which normally doesn't occur in nature and definitely doesn't occur during a sunset. Now with a clean and dry brush, you can blend your blue down into your yellow, but please go slow and have control here because again, I don't want you introducing any yucky green colors into your sunset sky. Now, when I took photos and videos of my buddy Tally and his fiance, you know, that day at the beach, it was actually a little overcasty and a little bit cold. So, you know what? I actually want to mimic that within my painting so they have that memory for when they look at it. And the cool thing about blue is when you introduce a little bit of black to it, they blend perfectly together to pull down a more muted tone within the blue. Take a clean and dry 1-inch brush, dip it into just a little bit of black, and paint in the corners first to have a vignette appearance. Then you can go across your painting in the blue section only, and then dry brush it in with a clean and dry 2-inch brush, and you're going to have this more muted blue that's going to have a more cold appearance to it. Now, if you want to add motion into your sky, like I did for my yellow and burnt orange gradients, you can use a flat or an angled shader again with a little bit of black and blue on it. And again, be loose with your brush strokes in the blue section only. When you have the amount that you want, take a clean and dry brush and lightly blend these in. Now's the chance to go back, correct, and enhance or add any details that you want. I personally want a little more of my burnt orange in my yellow, so I'm going to take my flat brush and just introduce it into the yellow section of my gradient and then blend it in softly with a clean and dry 2-inch brush to give a little more movement within my sky. Now carefully remove your masking tape to reveal a clean, crisp, and level horizon line. When we take a look at our reference photos, you can see that the ocean has this beautiful shine and glisten to it. And a very easy trick that every painter out there can do if you want to achieve that is just introduce a little bit of sun-thickened poppy oil to the colors you will be using in the ocean. Just add a drop or two. Now I'm going to lay down some base colors and kind of create a template. I'm first going to start with my sunlight source that's reflecting in the middle of my ocean by lightly brush stroking back and forth with a 1-inch brush. From there, I'm slowly going to start to build out with the other colors, which is going to be blue, which I'll actually pull from the outside in to my main light source that's reflecting in the center there. Cutting in here real quick with my subpar handsome face, although the hair looks decent today. If you're ever painting something that's inspired by our location or you're using reference photos, it's okay that you're not making an exact carbon copy. You don't need to make it hyper realistic. Be free and loose. Remember, this is just inspired by. The second tip is if you're painting something for someone else, like my friend Tally out there, you can make adjustments that resonate with him. My buddy Tally loves color. He loves pockets of color, which is why you're gonna see that within the sky and within the ocean, and eventually in the highlights. So don't be afraid to make some changes. Now back to my beautiful velvety voice. All right, we're back. Now that we've got our template of color in our ocean, let's go and clean up our horizon line. Take any flat brush with just a little bit of paint on it and slowly work from the bottom of your horizon line, working in a side-by-side motion, and push the color up to the horizon line to close the gap, especially if there's any exposed canvas. Be sure to go slow here and take your time. You want to ensure that you get the best level horizon line that you can. All right, let's go ahead and add some pockets of color to give our ocean just a little bit of character. I'm gonna take a brush that I have control with. That could be a flat, an angled shader, or a fan brush. Use whatever you want and load it up with a little bit of color and just start slicing back and forth with some light brush strokes. This can make a few different appearances in your ocean. It's gonna either look like waves, or it's gonna look like the sun is hitting it in different pockets, or it's gonna look like there's more dense parts of water that are deeper in those particular areas. Do this for your bright reflection spots and do this for the blue on the outside of the water. When you're done with all the pockets of color, make sure you take a clean and dry brush and lightly blend it in. Our ocean's not the focal point here, so make sure you blend it in to where it only has a little bit of detail. All right, let's move on to the palm trees, and palm trees are actually really easy, even easier if you've seen my video. Take a workable black paint that has just a little bit of medium in it and a fan brush and come down to create a trunk by holding the paintbrush vertically. As you start to come down, turn or push the paintbrush a little bit harder, which allows the bristles to bloom out, creating a thinner top down to a thicker bottom on the trunk. Don't be afraid to do multiple passes. Since we're painting on top of that black gesso, your palm trees are going to be very rich in a silhouette color, which is what we want. It's going to create some awesome contrast. Now, if you followed my tip and put a template of black gesso palm trees in first, I would recommend only working on one palm tree at a time. Also, if you're right-handed, start working on your left palm trees first and then move to the right, so that way you don't smear anything with your hand or elbow. If you're left-handed, work on the right side first, then work to the left for the same reason. Trust me, this will save you a lot of heartache and accidents down the road. When it comes to painting palm fronds, you first want to put in a template stem by tapping down with your fan brush to create that line. Once the line's in there, you can grab that line with your fan brush, let the bristles bend a little bit, and then swoop down towards the bottom of the trunk. This will look like thousands of blades of leaves are coming off that stem and going down towards the trunk. Take your time here. The harder you pull, the more leaves are going to come off that stem. You also want to make sure you feather out the end of that stroke, so that way there's a little bit of spear tips on the end of the blades, just like our real palm tree. Take your time and put in as many palm fronds as you want, and put them in different directions. Think about how the wind would blow. And also, don't forget to put some in front of your trunk if you want to add a 3D effect. And also, brand new palm fronds grow out the top of a palm tree. They're going to be short or more or less straight lines. So play around and have fun. Wild cutting in here really quick to do a little small self-promotion, which is me and my workbook. If you've ever wanted to start selling your art, but you're confused on what to price your art at, where to sell it, how to close a deal, and how to start making money, you need to pick up this book today, which is down in the video description. And I can't believe I actually nailed this in one take. Yeah, legit. All right, let's move on to bushes. And the first thing we need to do is add a dark base color. With sap green, a little bit of black, and a little bit of blue, we can take our 1-inch brush and put it through that mixture and start to go on top of our gesso template that we have for our bushes. You do want to make sure that the color we're pushing in goes slightly above our template. This will make for a natural gradient with our highlights that apply on top of it later down the road. But just follow your bush template and make sure to reload your brush often. We want some nice, dark, rich color here, so don't be afraid to push hard. In fact, I actually recommend it. If you're a brand new artist out there, don't be afraid to push that paint and paintbrush into the fabric of the canvas. Let those bristles bend. Plus, when you let the bristles bend, it's going to add a natural look to the top of your bush, like all these leaves, buds, stems, and flowers are coming right off the top. When we add base color to our grassy area at the bottom of our canvas, we only want to use a combination of sap green and a little bit of blue. The reason is this will give us some contrast between the grassy area and our bushes, but also sap green with a little bit of blue, and when we put highlight on top of it, is going to make a beautiful transition, which you'll see later in the tutorial. Now, it is a little hard to see in our reference photos, but in the bushes right here, there are a ton of red and yellow leaves that grow out of these bushes. And you know what? I want to make sure that I represent that within our painting. In fact, I want to over exaggerate a little bit because it's going to be fun to show, and I want to make sure they're nice and thick. So for our highlight color, I'm going to make sure that I introduce a lot of Gamblin solvent-free gel for my red color, and when it comes to my yellow highlight colors, I'm going to add some liquid white, so this way it's nice and creamy and has a beautiful texture. Run a 1-inch brush through your highlight color of whatever color you'd like to start with, and make sure you push the bristles slightly above where we had our base color, let them bend, and then pull directly away. If you do this correctly, you're going to have thousands of colorful leaves, buds, or flowers, whatever your mind wants to fill in. Repeat this process every few pushes, and then make sure you wipe off the brush, reload, and add more colors. Think about where the light comes down, which is in the center, so you want to cascade your brightest sources in the middle with your highlight colors, and then your darker or more muted ones on the outside. Also, when it comes to highlight colors, don't fill in your entire bush section. You want to make sure you leave some of that dark base color. It's going to make your bushes look more natural, like light is cascading through them in different ways. If you're looking to give your bushes some added detail, take your palette knife and scratch into the canvas right where your bush forms in the center. If you flare them out, this will look like a bunch of little sticks and twigs are actually forming inside your bush. It actually looks like the structure of the bush itself coming out to where the leaves form on the outside where your highlights are. All right, let's move on to shaping our grassy area. Now on our reference photo, it's actually a little hard to see from the angle, but the grass area is very unlevel with many different valleys and small pits in it. You got to be careful when you're walking around here. And I want to mimic that. I'm going to take a little bit of sap green and cadmium yellow on my 2-inch brush and just start tapping in the shape of the land. I like doing this approach because it actually gives me a template that I can follow later. I sometimes have a hard time visualizing how land will lay. So if I can make a very soft template, it allows me to build the structure a lot easier, especially when I have to apply highlights later. Now, I don't know how many of you live close to the ocean, but let's just say ocean and grass with the salt air don't mix well at times. So there's a lot of dead areas. So when I build my template, I want to also make sure that I build part of my template with those dead areas in mind. So I'll be using a little bit of yellow ochre, which mimics kind of dead grass really well. Take your time here and build the highlight template and build the shadow template. This will really help you out down the road, again, when you're starting to apply highlights and really shape that lay of the land. Now that I've got a template that's easier for me to build off of, I'm ready to start adding actual grasslands and highlights here. With a 1-inch brush with a flexible paint, I'm going to start tapping in and following my template. Now make sure you load the paint pretty well to the ends of the bristles here. So that way when you push against the canvas and slightly bend those bristles, the paint will come off. An added tip here is make sure when you tap into the canvas, pull directly away. You want to do a more tapping motion than a brush stroke method here. If you push in and then add a brush stroke, you're just going to smear the paint, which won't end up looking like soft grass. One simple trick you can do to make grass look really cool is soften the grass below the highlight line. And to do that, all you need is a clean and dry 2-inch brush, and use just the corner of that brush and lightly tap just below the highlight line and start to pull and shape that grassland down in the direction you want your land to flow. You can do this multiple times for as long as you want. Every time you tap, the softer the grass will get. Now, when it comes to adding highlights, I recommend doing 2 ways. You can do one with a 1-inch brush, so that way you have control, but you also have a bunch of bristles laying down a bunch of color in a random pattern, which will look awesome. However, I sometimes don't seem to have a lot of control with a 1 or 2-inch brush. So, you know what I like to do? I actually like to use a fan brush and load it up and turn it just slightly so I paint mostly with the corner and start tapping in and really shaping my land with highlights. I like to think about how the light is cascading through the center of my palm trees, coming over or through those bushes and just catching the upper bumps and mounds of my grasslands. This way I can really have a lot of fun and shape different valleys and pits and rolling hills within my small little grass field here. Now from here, you just have to build multiple layers and multiple planes of rolling grass. Feel free to alternate between your 1-inch brush, which will soften up that grass plane right below the highlight line, and then if you need to add more details or separate your planes, go back with your detail brush, which is that fan brush, and tap them in with thicker highlights to really make them stand out. One additional tip I want to give you as you build each individual plane is make sure you leave contrast between the plane behind it and layer behind it. This will make it stand out as you start to build layers as they come forward. You can also do it with different colors. For example, that yellow ochre that represents my dead grass, if I put a highlight in front of it, it's going to make it look like those layers are in front of each other, or they have a transition between each other. Have a little fun here and play around with the different brushes and colors and that undertone of black gesso to have some awesome results. And here we go, our final result. Let's do some close-ups here. When we look at our sky, we have the classic California sunset gradient, and with those pockets of color, it adds some slight movement to the sky. Our palm trees that are silhouetted out perfectly with that rich dark black color on that black gesso looks so good when we take those brush strokes out on our palm fronds, adding to all those blades that just look natural, and they were easy to do. Our bushes and their highlights have this thick, fun, colorful texture, and if you take a close look, you can even see the sticks that we carved in to give them even more detail. Our grass has so many different planes and also different characteristics, from soft grass to thick highlight ridges that looks like sunlight just kissed the very top of the grass. This one right here was a really fun painting to do. It took me about 1 hour to complete, but you can take your time. Add more details to the sky, water, palm trees, or foreground if you want. You know, I had so much fun that I actually painted this twice. One for Tally and one for his fiance. And I made a few different changes because I just wanted to have fun. Yeah, I just put in some darkened clouds really quick and some water lines so that way there was something different going on, which gives you a few examples on how you can play around with this tutorial here. If you want to see more tutorials like this, or you need more help on how to paint palm trees, check out the videos over to my side, where you get to see more of my beautiful face helping you out. And if you like this type of content, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment on what you want to see, and I'll keep bringing you awesome beginner tutorials. I'll check you later. Peace.